Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and we are debuting our brand new series on the channel, Hearthstone Rewind, where we take a look at classic Hearthstone matches, games throughout the history of Hearthstone, give a little bit of a background, and then kind of review the games. I'll commentate over it, give my perspective, all that. This is brand new. I have not rehearsed this. I've not done this ever before, so we're going to see how it goes. We'll see if this is something you guys like, something I like to do. And again, let me know in the comments below what we could improve on it, what we could do differently, what you would like to see. Thank you guys so much for the last video where I asked for ideas. I got, I don't know how many mat suggestions. I don't know how many new subs we picked up, how many likes, all that stuff. It's incredible. As for the giveaway, we'll be doing that in the near future. I'll announce it in the YouTube comments. I'll pin it when we do it. But I wanted to let the comments settle and all that, let people get in there. So in the next couple of days, I'll pin the winner in a recent video, so you guys will see that, but not quite yet. Anyways, let's take a look. This will be the first ever episode of Hearthstone Rewind, and we will be taking a look back at one of the most iconic classic matchups where Firebat won his first ever World Championship. So let's set the scene. This is back in 2014 during the weekend of November 2nd and 3rd. The World Championships took place at BlizzCon 2014 and were between Firebat and Tiddler Celestial. This was the first ever real World Championships held by Hearthstone. They had regional qualifications, a whole system to get to this point, and it all built up to this weekend where there were 16 competitors who qualified through 4 different regions. We had players from the Americas, Europe, Korea/Taiwan, and China all qualify. Notable players that did qualify for this tournament were Firebat, Strifecrow, Kalento, who was the heavy favorite going into the event, Tom60229, who became world champion at a later time, Kranich and Tare. Firebat had defeated Kaor in the quarterfinals 3-1 and D2 in the semifinals in a close match 3-2, and then where he made it to the finals, whereas Tiddler beat Tare 3-1 in the quarterfinals, and Kranich he swept in the semifinals 3-0. We're going to pick up the action in the pre-game interviews with, I must say, a very young-looking Firebat, and getting his opportunity to become immortalized as the first ever world champion, winning around, I believe, $100,000 as the grand prize. And I will note this tournament was a last hero standing format. So basically, if a player lost, they would have to switch decks. And if a player lost 3 games, they have no decks left. They are defeated, eliminated, and the World Championship will be crowned to basically whoever has the last hero standing. Let's take a look at what Firebat had to say.
You wanted to be invited. You wanted to be seen as one of the greatest Hearthstone players in the entire world. And if you win this event, there is no choice but to recognize you as such. Is that your goal?
That's my goal.
Absolutely.
You know, you just... It's an interesting question. The casting crew for this event, Frodan, Admirable, and Nimish, looking very young, very fresh though. Frodan looking remarkably, you gotta say, unstylish. What is this normal business attire, Frodan? It's interesting to see how they've evolved, but you know, they're still our favorite beloved casters. And we'll skip ahead a little bit here. We can take a look at the lineups. Tiddler, believe, bringing in Druid, Priest, and Warlock. My head's blocking that, I apologize. And Firebat has Hunter, Rogue, and Druid. His Warlock's been banned, and Tiddler's Hunter has been banned. So Warlock was Zoo, Hunter was Undertaker Hunter, and they have their reasons. I guess Firebat had done a really good job crushing opponents with his Zoo, had it banned, and you know, Firebat knew the power of Undertaker Hunter and banned it. And we're going to skip ahead to the first match, the first game. We have a Druid Mirror. So this is like ramp Druid with like Force of Nature, Savage Roar, stuff like that. And you're going to see some pretty interesting cards that actually were in the World Championship finals for these players. Both of these players, a very similar list, if not the same. So we have Wild Growth for 2 mana. Both players have that. That's very smart of both of them. But you'll note they both have Chill Wind Yetis in their deck. Yes, Innervet Yeti is a meme for a reason. It was run, and it's pretty incredible to see this. So, I mean, both players, you know, playing it out, playing on curve, playing their growth on 2. Smart stuff, going to 4 mana. And we're going to see Firebat take the initiative here. play Chill Wind Yeti. He's got a Spectral Knight in his deck. A Spectral Knight. That's from like Curse of Naxxramas. 5 mana, 4/6. Can't be targeted by hero powers or spells. It's really good in your Druid Mirror because the main removal for Druid is their spells. So, interesting play here. Right away, we have 2 Yetis. And does Firebat trade? Does he kill the Yeti? Does he set up Wrath Swipe? Anything like that? No. Just drop the Knight, go face, and this matchup was very much get your opponent down to like 14 health and try and kill them with a Force of Nature Savage Roar combo. So that's basically what's going on here. And Tiddler coining out Sylvanas to contest board, be awkward for Firebat to try and steal some minions, gain tempo on the board, and well, you'll note what Firebat does, and I like it, you know? It's classic Hearthstone. Play stats, go face. Let's take a look at listen to the commentary. What's the commentary like back in these times?
Like, this is one of the strategies that the players can apply, but maybe there is something better.
Yeah, if you take a look, I mean, he does have 12 points of damage if he chooses to charge this Druid, and that really sends a big statement to your opponent. Something that you're worried about, of course, is whether or not this Sylvanas is going to die next turn. If your opponent doesn't have a Wrath, or a way to like give your opponent minions 1 power, this Sylvanas is going to stay on the board for another turn. So even through something like that, he would be able to take out a couple of his opponent's minions. But you know, when you're
so we got some astute analysis from Admirable. Always astute, and it's only gotten better over the years. Yeah, it's just interesting. This is Firebat really deliberating. Do I trade? Do I set things up? Or do I play Hearthstone the purest of ways, a World Championship way, and go face? And he's thinking about it. He's thinking about drawing a card. So is he going to trade with his Yeti or Spectral Knight? See what that draw is. He'll make up his mind and sees that Savage Roar and looks like he's going to tempo the BGH, and I don't think there's any BGH target in this matchup, which makes me think he's just going to go face, and I like it. You know, that's classic Hearthstone. Make your opponent trade. Make it awkward for them. And I want to note something. I just want to note, when you're watching this game and many other games during this World Championship, you'll note that when a player plays his card, he doesn't add another card to his hand. And we also don't have rush minions, so like, every trade is like difficult to pull off. You have to play your minion, trade it, set it up, like all that stuff. So rush isn't in the game, and we have no generation. They're not generating all these different spells, removal options. They're working with their hand, with their deck, and it's just funny to watch. Like if you watch a game today, by turn 6, how many cards have been generated every single turn? It's crazy, but we can see Tiddler here setting up the full clear with swipe, getting the board, tempoing that Haunted Creeper. And at 18 health, he's starting to feel a little nervous, I would imagine. And Firebat, you'll note he went face with all those plays. If he traded, he would have just missed damage. Those swipes would have cleared his stuff, so he didn't miss a point of damage. And that's just really expertly played. A lot of people would have traded in those spots, get the value trades, when, you know, Firebat knows what's in Tiddler's deck. He doesn't have to play around anything else, and he knows exactly that. And it's really smart that he didn't miss any damage there. And, you know, Loatheb against the Druid's pretty good. Locks out all removal spells. All Tiddler can do here is drop minions. So, looking at his hand, he doesn't have much options for clear. It's probably like Tempo Harrison hero power, but let's see what he decides to do. That's basically it. Not really many options there. And Firebat has Tiddler down to 19 health. Picks up Savage Roar. Force of Nature. He's looking at lethal anytime here. So, Firebat just pushing the initiative. Really smart. Shade of Naxxramas. This is an interesting card. Saw a lot of play back in the day in Druid, especially. It's a 3-mana 2/2 from Naxxramas. Scaled +1/+1 every turn at the beginning of your turn. So Druid can't interact with it. There's literally no way for them to interact with the stealth minion. It's just going to scale, and then when you would combo out, say your Force of Nature or just Savage Roar, it just can hit for a massive amount of damage. So with that established, you can see, like, what can Tiddler do? Other than double swipe, how is he going to interact with it? He can't. And the shade will grow. And this card was very prominent in Druid for quite some time. So 2 Druid of the Claws. This was meta. We had Sunfury Protector in this deck to try and, I guess, deal with some aggro options. Can give him taunt, but he can literally just play Druid of the Claw and just jam face here. He can jam face with Force Savage Roar. That's like +6 damage. That's 7 + 6, 13 damage. Right on the board. He's already got Tiddler down to 18. I almost wonder if he just literally just jams Druid of the Claw, Sun Fury, and goes face here. Like, just push all the damage so that next turn he can go Force Innate or Savage Roar with Druid of the Claw and pretty much set up lethal if he leaves the Shade stealth. So I haven't watched these games. I want to go in fresh, give you that commentary, give that retrospective, and this is really fascinating to watch. Like, these are real, like, I just find there's so much more decision making, even though the cards are so much more basic. There's so much more decision making here, and yeah, he's pushing the damage, hero powering, and he could play the Sun Fury and just, oh, he's gonna jam it with everything. Gonna push the 3. I mean, it makes sense to me. Like, you might as well push it now, but you could have saved that force the Savage Roar to buff it, guarantee the next turn. But really tough spot here for Tiddler. He could full clear, but he's got to use his face to do it. But I think you just Spectral Knight in hero power and hope there's no damage. But yeah, this is lethal with Druid of the Claw, Savage Roar. So here it is. We got lethal. Druid of the Claw, Savage Roar. Firebat takes game number 1. And this was like, you might, like, I feel like a lot of players would not have played this properly. The way that Firebat literally never traded, never gave Tiddler like that comfortable trade, push damage every single turn, and got him. And I just thought it was well played. And that's basic Hearthstone, fundamental Hearthstone, but we don't see that much these days. It's a lot about generating cards, see what you can do with your generated cards. And that game, not one card generated. That's all, no RNG at all either. There was no, other than draw RNG, nothing random about that game at all. So we'll skip ahead to the next game. Firebat, again, because he won, he gets to keep playing Druid. And you'll face Tiddler's Priest, which we got Akanai Soul, Priest, and Circle of Healing in the hand here. Innervate, we got Coin, Innervate Yeti, the absolute nuts here. The crowd's going wild. Against a Priest, this is like their worst nightmare too, so Firebat has the nuts, but he's gonna hold off on it. He's looking at innervating Yeti and then coining Yeti is what I imagine he's gonna do here. And I guess Tiddler's just playing like a control Priest deck, which is going to struggle, I would imagine, quite a bit here against especially this explosive Druid start. But I mean, you innervate Yeti and then you coin Yeti, and what is the Priest going to do? The best start ever. I absolutely agree. So Tiddler in a pretty tough spot here. I think you just got to drop the Cultist so that maybe Firebat trades in, weakens his minion, and sets up the Akanai Circle, which could give him a bit of, you know, some recourse to that. So Firebat, he can play around it by coining his Yeti here, but if he goes into to Shade here, that's actually going to be a bit of a punish. So we'll see what he does here, but I would imagine he coins the Yeti. That seemed to be his line. Otherwise, why not just, like, coin Innervate Yeti, get it going? But, again, he didn't have Wild Growth in his hand then. He might have thought other reasons, and, I mean, you just go face here. I don't think you trade, but there are buffs that are in the game. There's Power Word Shield. There are punishes to this, so he's going to trade, and, yeah, Tiddler's in a really tough spot here. But I'm wondering if what he could do here is literally just Holy Smite down a Yeti. He telegraphs his play, but I don't really see how Firebat plays around. He could, like, Holy Smite them 4-5, set up Akanai Circle. This looks like a Priest turn to me. I love it. Let's skip ahead, see what he ends up doing. I think he ends up just passing, not telegraphing whatsoever, and then he sets up the clear. Yeah, that makes sense too. Don't give the information away, but I don't really see how Firebat can really heal up on that, but it would allow you to circle the Powered Shield the next turn, protecting the minions. So I don't know. I kind of would have liked to see that proactive Smite play, because again, there's not really any healing minions, but you kind of give away information. But now, if Firebat wants, he can just hero power it down, set up the Shade, and otherwise, if the Powered Shield was down, the Akanai would be sticking. So, interesting line that was taken there by Tiddler. So yeah, drop the Shade. Again, really hard to interact with. Priest, at this point, unless he's running Holy Nova, doesn't really have much of a way of dealing with this. Again, this World Championship, I believe the sets were only Classic and Naxxramas. GVG was yet to come out, so we don't see any, like, Dr. Boom or anything like that. Ooh, Keeper of the Grove. This was a staple in Druid back in the day. It's still in the game, but it's a 4-mana 2/2. Now, as a 4-mana 2/4, it was just way more resilient. You can silence, you can deal damage. It was really powerful. And yeah, Firebat's is going to silence at Sylvanas. Sylvanas was always a pain for Druid to deal with. It's a really good counter, because you can't really silence it, and then they're just going to hit, like, steal your big minions, and there's just really nothing you can do about it. So I imagine Firebat leads the Shade Disguise. No point in really pushing 3 against a Priest. And he's just pushing damage. He's pushing damage, trying to get to his combo. Loatheb can be a really powerful play against Priest. Lock them out, because it's very spell heavy. You can see Shadow or Death back here, 3 mana. You know, it's interesting to see how Death's always been a big part of Priest, and even at now 2 mana, it's crazy. But yeah, it used to be 3 not that long ago, and definitely back here. So we got Karin in Firebat's deck. That's pretty freaking good against Priest. It's 4 attack. Priest have literally had no way of dealing with 4 attack minions pretty much at this point. You have mind control, right? Mind control. Like, there was basically nothing they could do. A pint-sized summoner, or I don't remember, the 2-mana 3/2. It could, like, Shrinkmeister, I think. Could, like, lower the attack, but that didn't come out till GVG, which is not available. So you could, like, Shrinkmeister Cabal Shadow Priest if you wanted to deal with a 4 attack minion. But you can see Tiddler, he's stressed out. He sees that Karin. It's pretty bad for him. And Firebat looking at trading, protecting his Karin, so that, like, what can Tiddler do here if he trades? Like, there's, he's got an injured Blade Master on the board, but that does not kill the Karin. So he's thinking about it, but he's just going to let it scale more because, I mean, yeah, he lets the first half of Karin die here, but again, he's got the second half that it's going to be pretty hard to deal with. So let's skip ahead a little bit. Does he end up doing the trade? He does end up doing the trade. We got Karin versus Injured Blade Master. We have a 3-mana Thought Steal. Was good enough to bring World Championships in. Hey, we got some removal. We got a swipe, but I think he'll probably just drop the Spectral Knight here just to get a body on the board. Swipe doesn't really do anything. You get rid of that first half of the Karin, but again, what is that doing for you? You got to get on board. You have to be able to contest these 4 attack minions, but looking pretty rough here. Firebat's just got so much damage, and you can hear the excitement if you can hear in the background. Savage Roar just presents so much damage back then. It was such a force, and you got Force of Nature Savage Roar in hand. That's 14 damage from in hand. You're looking at 14 plus 6 with Karin. He's one off, I believe he's one off lethal here. So what he can do here is just Loatheb and Jam Face and likely kill his opponent the next turn. Like, there's really no counterplay for this. Like, I guess Celeste or Tiddler can, like, Death, Swipe. That's literally all he's got left, but he can't remove both threats, and he just dies. He's just dead next turn. And there's no Reno Jackson, unless he's got some type of taunt minions. So he's going to need a taunt or something to get through this to save himself, because, I mean, he's got 1 spell to remove 1 minion. With 4 damage on board, he can go to 18. It's just over with Force of Nature Savage Roar, and that's it. He's dead. He needed to get a taunt to try and protect himself, and yeah, Firebat goes up 2-0 here. Force of Nature Savage Roar. We had Innervate Yeti. What an iconic game of Hearthstone. So Firebat's 1 game away from winning the World Championships. This is last man standing. He only needs to win 3 games. He doesn't have to do it with all the different classes. So there we go. 1 game away. Man, these guys look young. Let's skip ahead to the final match. Druid versus Warlock. This is good old-fashioned handlock where you had Ancient Watchers, Molten Giants, Mountain Giants, Twilight Drakes. You taunted it up. Try and lock people out. And man, Firebat's really good at having Wild Growth on 2. I gotta say, he had it on 2 every game. He chose not to play it the last game, but solid stuff. So, good old-fashioned handlock. If you're not aware, you life tap. You want to develop your Mountain Giants, your big Twilight Drakes, taunt them up. Get your health low enough that you can Molten Giant, taunt that up. So, I would think that Druid's going to struggle pretty heavily with it. That's why you see BGH in Firebat's lineup to try and deal with those Giants, and Keeper of the Groves of the Twilight Drakes and the taunts. So it's got the double Keeper, but no BGH, and we're 1 turn away from a Mountain Giant here. And I think Tiddler's, he can coin Twilight Drake, but he gets punished by Keeper of the Grove. So see what he does here. He's got to think about this. Like, if he doesn't develop at all, he lets Firebat develop a 5-drop. That's pretty bad for him. He can just trade in potentially to a Giant. So basically, he wants to contest the board, and the problem here is Firebat's got Keeper the Grove, which will put that Twilight Drake to 1 health if he so chooses to, and it's a good shot. He's even emoting. Oh, I love it. We don't really see that in competitive Hearthstone these days. The actual emote. That's A tier. I'm sad we don't see that these days. So, Tiddler punished pretty hard. He can't Mountain Giant now, and, well, I guess his thought is, I can Twilight Drake into Twilight Drake. The problem is, there's another Keeper of the Grove in Firebat's hand, and he's gonna emote again. That is absolutely amazing, but this does allow Tiddler to set up his Mountain Giant, but these two Keeper of the Groves are on the board. They're setting, you know, their stats, and this is going pretty poorly. Like, all the tech cards that Firebat has are paying off right now, and if you top deck something like BGH here, that would be absolutely incredible, but no. I think you can just Cairn here, and you probably jam. He could swipe trade, but that's just awful, so I imagine Firebat just Cairns, goes face. Let's see what he does. He's got a lot to think about, so it might be a bit of a longer turn. Can skip ahead here. So he goes for the Lotheb play, locking out all spells and just going face. It's more stats on the board in terms of attack. Can set up potential better trades. Whereas Cairn is stickier, but again, we don't think Tiddler's gonna, you know, really deal with both halves anyway, so. Just develops the Belcher here, and I'm curious to see. It does trade. It's interesting. I wonder if you just jam face there as the Warlock player. But again, I'm not familiar with these matchups back in the day. And Tiddler, World Championship material, probably making the right trade there. But both silences are gone, so Sledge Belcher is going to stick here pretty well. And Firebat's got some tough turns to navigate here. There's a Mountain Giant on the board. He doesn't have Force of Nature, doesn't have Savage Roar. We see Azure Drake in his hand, the classic dragon that used to be an auto-include. Spell damage +1, draw a card. Missed that guy, but hell, it doesn't really see play in Wild. Wrath's a really nice pickup here. Kills the Mountain Giant and probably just plays it slow. You're not going to give that taunt minion Wind Fury. No trading there. And yeah, right now, Tiddler doesn't really have impactful plays. He's got Lotheb. Probably his best play here. Tap Lotheb. Oh my goodness! Lord Jaraxxus was in a World Championship lineup. Oh, how I miss Jaraxxus. And it's a golden Jaraxxus. Pretty good late game, and as you saw, there was a Priest in this matchup. Imagine that against a Control Priest back in 2014. You just win the game if you get Jaraxxus going. If you're not familiar with Jaraxxus, it's like the OG hero card. You transform your hero into Jaraxxus, you go to 15 health, you get a 3/8 weapon, and for 2 mana, you summon 2 6/6 Abyssals. And yeah, just Firebat really tempoing out Tiddler hard here. Those two Keeper of the Groves just wrecked him, and right now, you can see the value of them being at 2/4s. They're getting some value trades in that's really solid. And this board is getting a little bit out of control, but Tiddler does have Shadow Flame. He's got the Lotheb, so he should have a pretty strong turn next turn. You can just bump in Shadow Flame and try and develop. I probably just like Earthern or something like that. He could heal up, but he also might want to get low enough that he can play his Molten Giant. For the most part, what Tiddler needs to be aware of is staying above 14 health. Force of Nature, Savage Roar, 14 health. That's like the magic mark you want to stay above. And yeah, Shadow Flames the Lotheb, gets the full clear. And I think it is tempo the Eartherns here, gets him heal. Unless you want to try and get that Molten Giant out first and then drop it, but it's getting pretty awkward here, so he's just going to heal up. And yeah, Firebat's kind of running out of steam. He's got some minions. He's got the Savage Roar. That's a big pickup, and he can just kind of reload on the board here. Maybe drop a Yeti, drop the Shade, Hero Power, push a little bit of damage. Tiddler does have the Hellfire if he wants to clear this. He could play Jaraxxus, but that's a big risk. He clears the Yeti. The Shade is still in play, and then he would just be dead to Force of Nature, Savage Roar. So there's always that threat. There's always that threat back in the day. And again, none of these players have to play around anything random. It's all stuff calculating that they got to calculate from their opponent. They know exactly how much reach they have. They know exactly what their combos can do. They know their tech cards because these are open deck lists. And it's just fun to watch this. It's refreshing. You don't, like, if you watch competitive Hearthstone these days, it's literally players playing cards, getting more cards in their hand, and who's the best at using those random cards, or who gets the better random cards. So, real interesting. And let's see what Firebat's got here. He doesn't have the strongest of plays. I wonder if he just double Druid of the Claw, taunt them up. Could do that. See that. I don't know, like, you double charge, you just get wrecked by Molten Giant. Firebat's probably been hand reading, seeing that, like, these 3 cards up here, they've been stuck in Tiddler's hand for a while, so you probably don't want to damage him here. You probably just want to build stats, try and have something stick, and if you draw Force of Nature, you might just win the game on the spot, so... that's the line he's going to take. Just develop stats. Don't do the charging. Like, the last match, he just charged. Or against the Druid, he just charged in because he knows, like, there's no Molten Giant to play around. There's not much healing to play around. And it's just, that's what they're doing. They're playing around what their opponents can do. And it's just, Firebat's playing it masterfully. Like, every turn, really well played. Tiddler's playing well, too. He's just, the draws have not lined up. I mean, he got really punished with the Twilight Drake play. But again, there was not much he could do, so... Firebat's got a nasty board to look at here, but Swipe does a good job. The issue is he's going to be giving up one of his minions. Sylvanas, this is why it can be really good against Druid, is there's just not much you can do, and you're going to have to give up a significant minion, so it's like, we'll see what he ends up doing if he trades swipes or just draws 2. Back in the day of Ancient of Lore, this drew 2 cards in restored 5 health, choose 1, instead of drawing 1 card. This was like a staple in like almost every Druid deck back in the day. And, yeah, he's kind of got an interesting option here. He can clean up, get rid of the taunts to try and set up Force of Nature Savage Roar with a swipe, or draw 2 and just go from there. And this is not an easy play. Like, you swipe, you don't develop anything, you give him initiative, because you're going to give up one of your, beast taunts, and you got to go from there. But I like this. This is really interesting. He's just going to he's going to Savage Roar and just swipe. No, he's going to Ancient of Lore. This is really, like, this is a line I'm not even seeing. This is Firebat 6 years ago. He's a little bit better than me even back then. He's a world champion for a reason, and that was really smart. He uses the Savage Roar, doesn't save it for Force of Nature, and now he doesn't lose the board. He's got a good tempo position. That's brilliant. That was a really well thought out play. I was thinking Swipe or Ancient of Lore, and he just, really smart. It's awesome to watch this stuff. Like, you can learn Hearthstone plays even now from Firebat from 2014, and that's some awesome stuff to see. So Tiddler's playing really passive here, just removing, trying to win the late game, trying to get, I don't know if he's trying to get to Jaraxxus, but Firebat now with that play sets up double Spectral Knight, which can't be really interacted with. Tiddler does not seem happy about it. So what's the play you do here? Ironbeak Owl! Used to be 2 mana. 2 mana silence. Nice tech option there. Again, probably for mirrors, things like that. Undertaker. You could silence Undertaker on 2, which was pretty relevant. It's very popular. Sludge Belcher's a really nice pickup here, though. You can just drop that down, and again, Firebat's going to struggle to get with it. This game is a lot closer than the last 2. Firebat really steamrolled the first 2, but he is being put to work, and he's starting to go low on health. He's down to 13 health here. He's got to watch out, so... Ooh! Now that's a tech card you like drawing. Black Knight on a board with a Sludge Belcher. He's going to be able to get a lot of damage in here. Admirable pointing out. Huge draw. Ridiculous. And now we're going to see Firebat pushing the board. I don't think he uses swipe here. I think you just trade, but... Again, you got to be aware of Molten Giant. You go face here. You put him down to 14 and 13. Molten Giant's down to like 3 mana. You got to be aware of it. And he's used a Black Knight and 2 Keeper of the Groves. I'm not sure how much more tech he has. He hasn't drawn his BGH. He does have a BGH in the deck still, so still tech options to get through a Giant. So we'll see if he jams face or just trades. Yeah, I get the play. This might look passive. And he's going to even think about the hero power here. He doesn't want to give him that cheap Molten Giant. Because Molten Giant, Shadow Flame just clears his board. And right now, Molten Giant, Shadow Flame is exactly 11 mana. And believe me, Firebat's aware of this. Because if he plays that, he could just have his board clear. That's absolutely brilliant play. But he can tap and play the Molten Giant and Sun Fury it. That is the play that's probably going to come down here. And double swipe does a lot here. It's very close to lethal. It's 12, 4, no, it's lethal. That's just lethal. Just the double swipe alone. He didn't even need the Savage Roar. The commentators are going crazy. But with a double swipe in hero power, that's lethal. And Firebat, world champion, and the best play of that game was the line I didn't even see. The Savage Roar with the 2 taunts on board was just brilliant. Kept the board, kept tempo, wins the game, and we have our first ever world champion. And those are really cool games to watch. The only RNG that we saw in this entire game was Sylvanas, what random mini would steal, and that's a calculable thing. You can play around it to an extent. No generated cards. Discover wasn't in the game. And yeah, masterfully played. Firebat, one of the best players of all time, and world champion. And just, that was a real awesome match to watch. There you have it. That's the first ever episode of Hearthstone Rewind. Again, let me know in the comments below what you guys think, what we can do to improve what you liked from the video. Basically cut it in quasi-commentating with a little bit of like retrospective stuff about the cards and, you know, what they're trying to play around and just things about the game. But again, let me know. I don't know how the audio came up with the commentary. I wanted the commentary to be a little bit in the background, but you know, we're kind of talking over it. Again, it's all new to me. This is brand new. Haven't seen anyone else attempt this, so any feedback is really appreciated. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day. Stay salty, my friends.